You've probably heard the argument made, and a lot of people make the statement, they'll say, I don't need God, or I don't need some guy in the sky, or I don't need some book to tell me right from wrong. I know right from wrong all on my own. And this is, on the surface, something that really hits people. It'll make them, want to reject the Bible, and it'll make people who do believe in God, people who do believe in the authority of the Bible, kind of question themselves. They'll be like, well, maybe I'm not as good as a person because I look to the Bible for my morals. Or maybe I'm not as good as a person because I feel like I need God to guide me in certain directions. But this is just an argument that looks good on the surface, what sounds good on the surface. If we really look a little deeper at this argument, we can see that it falls apart. Now, basically what it comes down to is, what is your standard of good? Because if you are to tell people what you think is good, there's going to be very few people who will agree with you. Some people believe a good person is just somebody who goes to work and takes care of their kids and kind of stays out of trouble. Another person may feel like good people are the people who give to the poor, and people who start missionaries, and people who are doctors, are people who work in the medical field. Some people feel like good people are people who go out and fight, people who are soldiers. Some people feel like good people are people who believe in God. Some people believe different things. Nobody has the same standard of good. So in order to know what good is, we have to first have a standard of what good is. So the fact is, you do need God if there is a God. Because if there is a God, then his standard of good is what good is, because he is the creator of good. He is what good is. And this is what God is. God's character itself is good. And this is why we know what good is, because we try to strive to be more like God. Right here in Proverbs 21:2, we're told that every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the heart. Everybody is good in their own eyes. If you have somebody who is a very passionate person about helping kids and starts an orphanage, their standard of good is going to be different than somebody who just simply goes to work and takes care of their family. The person who goes to work and takes care of their family is going to feel like they're a good person. But that person who owns this orphanage, he's going to look at this guy and be like, oh, you're a slacker. You're not really doing anything for your community. You're not helping. They're not going to consider you a good person because of their standard. And then we look at someone like God, who is morally perfect, no flaws at all, as Jesus was when he came on earth. And what would his standard of good be? Well, it'll be a lot higher than that person, even at that orphanage. So when we think about our source, and when we think about what good is, that's what really sets everything apart. Another thing that destroys this argument is most people, especially atheists, are controlled by culture when it comes to what they think good is. Now, one of the best examples for this right now is the fact that abortion is something that is legal, and it's something that so many people have a problem wrapping their mind around how evil it really is. And they don't understand that this is completely evil. This is probably even worse than slavery was here in America. But because of the culture around you, people are corrupted by it. When you see so many people that are okay with it, you start to think it's okay too. And sad to say, this is the same thing with homosexuality. We see so many people accepting it and making arguments for it, that it corrupts your own morals, because we have lost that standard that God gives us. So once again, we do need God to know what right is. Otherwise, you will just fall right along with your culture. Right here in 1 Corinthians 15:33, do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good manners or good morals. That's the version I really like from the NASB. If people were to start killing babies in the womb and you had never seen it before, I think you would really just be like, wow, that is sick. That is, about as worse as it can get. But because of all the charades that are put on around it by making it a medical profession, and because of these large um, um, groups of people who are out protesting for it, all these things will sway people's emotion. And the same thing with the homosexual community. Because of the large numbers and because of these activists that are out speaking about it, people are swayed not by what is an objective right or wrong, but by what the culture wants. So if we're following culture, the more corrupt our culture becomes, the more corrupt we will become. So once again, we're falling away from the standard that was given to us by our Creator. So once again, we do need God to know right from wrong. Of course, we have a conscience. We all have a conscience, and to a level we know right from wrong until we begin to sear our conscience. And this is what happens when we see something done so many times, or we do something that really pulls against our conscience, and we do it so many times that it no longer bothers us. And this is what is called searing our conscience. And this is what we've done, especially us as Americans. We have seared our conscience beyond the point of understanding that we're killing children, or beyond the point of understanding that we're going against God's intended order of nature. So, another thing that can happen when we start following culture and we stop following the revelation that we've been given from God is something like slavery. Now, I know a lot of people will think they'll be like, well, didn't the Bible, condone slavery? Well, it never did. It never did condone the kind of slavery that we saw here in America. And this is what a lot of people are confused about. They believe the Bible was okay with the racist slavery, with the kidnapping of people and then putting them to work for cheap labor. The Bible never condones this. As a matter of fact, with one verse, this whole issue is refuted, and that is in Exodus 21:16. He who kidnaps a man and sells him, or is found in his hand, shall surely be put to death. This closes the case on slavery. He who kidnaps a man and sells him, or is found in his hand, shall surely be put to death. This is the kind of slavery that we saw in America. People who were kidnapped against their will and then were sold to other people. The Bible is clear on it. You're to be put to death for this. This is how the Bible has always been put. So when we see verses about slavery in the Bible, we get to understand context. They're talking about indentured servitude, people who owed money to people and really were willingly working for them. And also when you have nations that have gone into war and they have slaves of war, when they have people who are captured after a war, which still goes on today. So this is nothing new. But people will take the context of American slavery and put it into the Bible, not because they really think this is what's going on, but because of the other moral issues in the Bible that are against what they really want to do, against the lust of the flesh. And because they don't like these things, they look for any little flaw in the Bible that's not really there. So it's very important that we remember that and without the standard given to us by God of what good is, we don't know what it is. Every single person is going to have their own standard of good. And ultimately we'll end up following the culture. And the culture sways from here to there. Slavery was okay. Now something even worse than slavery is okay here in America, and that's abortion, killing babies. Killing babies is okay here in America. And, people don't want to say it like that, but that's just the fact of it. That's what it is. We're killing little kids, and it's okay. Why? Because the culture says. And this is what most, and I don't want to put on every atheist, but it's an abundance of atheists that believe that abortion is okay. Without God and without an understanding of the Bible, people lose the understanding of how precious life is. We start looking at people as animals. We start looking at people as a whole or as a group or what's good for the community, but we don't look at the individual soul. We look at that woman that wants to kill her child and say, well, You know, she wants to go to college, or she, you know, what about her life? And then we're completely neglecting the life that is right there in our womb. So, do we need God to know right from wrong? Of course, because God is the one who knows right from wrong. So, in order for us to know it, we have to know it from Him. We can create our own right or wrong, but guess what? Everybody is going to be completely subjective. Everybody's going to have their own. Something to think about.